Hello, everyone. I am Sam Eckmann here with Thomas Mizer and Curtis Moore. And for the past two seasons, the pair of you, your songwriting for The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel has kind of focused on particular characters, like writing from the standpoint of a certain singer. But here in season five, there is a whole plethora of songs written for this business expo. Is that kind of a more freeing thing to you to not have to worry about matching a specific character's voice? What is that shift like for you?
I think that for us it was sort of returning to our roots of music theater in a fun way, that Amy gives us a chance to sort of take the keys of the car of the episode and get to run with it, to mix my metaphors. Um, so it was fun for us, but it was wild because those industrial shows are real. We're not making this up. People think we're parodying something, and we're not. If you go back, there are amazing composers who wrote these shows about transmissions for trucks and bath goods. And so it was fun to sort of throw ourselves into the middle of that insane but fun world like that.
Yeah, and to expound upon it, it's been great that, like you said, that Amy has really given us the opportunity to sort of expand in this season. So it was really great to not only be able to write for this musical episode, which has three different musicals in it, but also to do everything from the Gordon Ford themes and all the stuff you're hearing from the Gordon Ford band. It was really fun to work that way. And then, everything you hear from the burlesque sort of stripper club, like all those songs we got to write. And it lets us be really part of the drama a little bit, which is I think a really fun thing for us this season.
Yeah, there's a lot of work that goes into the season for you too.
Yeah.
And those industrial musicals that you mentioned, were you familiar with that aesthetic at all? Like, where did the research there lead you and inspire you?
Well, we had all watched Bathtubs Over Broadway, that fantastic documentary about those, and Amy told us that she was going to do an industrial. So, we'd started doing a deep dive. And, once we do start working on these pieces, we really try to live in them. As Tom likes to put it, we're sort of like method actors and how we like to write. In other words, we're going to spend a lot of time really thinking like those people writing those songs. And in the case of the musicals, Amy had asked us specifically to write each musical. There's three musicals in that episode, to write each one as we're writing them from a different perspective, and that each one has a different songwriting team. So we actually had to play three different songwriters writing each of those musicals. There's the trash musical, but there's also the landscape musical, and there's the kitchen musical. So each one had to sound different.
She was very specific. She's like, I want people to believe that three different writers wrote each of them. So that's such a fun challenge for us. And, and then of course we didn't know what the musicals were going to be about until very late. She told us to research industrials, but then very last minute, basically about 3 to 4 weeks before shooting, she brought us into a room and said, trash, kitchens, and landscapers. We're like,
Oh, whoa, yeah.
What are you talking about?
Right. And some of the words we had to get into those lyrics was just funny, like private waste management and butler's pantry. And
She's very insistent about a butler's pantry. Very insistent.
and then even the landscape pros, getting that into it was really it was a challenge and also fun. And to go back to your first question a little bit, I think having those, anytime there's a framework, it gives us a sandbox to work in. And I think the more specific a challenge is, sometimes the better and the more focused we can make it.
Yeah. Since you had to do those three different styles, were there, composers in your mind that you were pulling from to create a certain sound?
There's always a ton of research. I mean, we listen to so many albums and albums of industrial musicals, but also stuff from the era. And then we kind of, for the landscapers, we knew that it was going to have this sort of like flowy dancers, that they have an image. So we were like, okay, this is a writer who's sort of 1950s throwback. And then for the kitchen one, we had an image of like, oh, these are a bunch of ad guys who write jingles and stuff. And so they're trying to be hip and rock and roll and put in a lot of product references. And then the trash one, we thought, this is a young writing team on the cusp of the 60s who wants to sort of show off. and it's looking forward. So your Kander and Ebbs and your Sondheims and your all those people that were just about to break out, those were sort of in the back of our head for those.
It's interesting you mentioned the visuals, because that it looks great the way they've staged it too. And I, with the trash for the personal trash can man, which is a great turn of phrase. The tap dancing with the trash lids is great. Do you kind of see like an image of what that's going to look like when you're writing a song? Do you have something that you're basing that on?
Well, sometimes it's given to us. Like Amy did say, like, I want to do a number. I want them to tap dancing with trash can lids. And so that is what we had. We're like, great, that we can do. So we kind of went in with that in mind for that number. But some of the other ones, there isn't as much that we know. So we kind of, or she'll give us little bits and pieces. She did say that she wants like the skirts to blow up in the landscape number. So we can kind of write where we think those moments happen. And with those in mind, it helps us to kind of really pack the songs with moments for those kind of things.
Yeah,
I'm just going to say hello to my dog who's decided to join us for a tail that's wagging through.
Well, hello, pup. But that dance sequence, I'm curious, when you have a dance sequence in your song like that, how much of it changes? Because I know this was a very shortened period of time, but is there ever a point where the choreographer's like, actually, I need more of something here or an extension here? Is there a back and forth?
We work incredibly closely with Marguerite, who is just a genius choreographer, and she really wants to talk to us. We talk with her during the composition of it and send her things. And then on set, things change right and left. I mean, just that enormous set, the timing of things, we have to change music on the spot. I mean, Curtis, do you tell a story about changing the ending of one song?
Right, we had one moment in that musical, in Tessa's number, she sings, Emily Bergel does, when the set opens and that huge trash pile comes down, she sings that torch song. And we pre-record all this before we get there. It's all lip synced on set, because you have to do it that way. But we got there that day, and Amy had decided she wanted to change a lyric at the last minute. But we had recorded this a week in advance. So, the only thing we could do is tell all 800 people in the space, like, everyone has to be quiet for the next minute and a half. And we had to record this. Tom wrote, 5 versions. Amy picked one, and we quickly recorded it, thinking, well, this is just a temporary thing we did on set. That ended up being the final. We didn't go back and loop that. As far as I know, I don't think we went back. So yeah, things like that happen all the time. And there, even, when it comes to the dance stuff, although I sort of wrote a dance break for that before we even got there, and because I've worked so closely with, as Tom said, we've done that with Marguerite. The dance break itself didn't change, but we definitely retained a lot of what happens before and after. The sunrise comes up. We had to put a little spot of music in there. It was a lot of stuff goes in. It's, as anybody will tell you, it's a huge collaborative process, but it was very fast and furious.
Yeah, Emily Bergel is really fabulous on that apocalyptic.
It's incredible.
Mound of trash. I love that, this show can be so silly with things like that, because I think it says, something about the, fake composer, that they thought this will be a great idea to have this massive piece of trash. Do you kind of get into the mindset of those different people like that?
Absolutely. I mean, when we walked into the conference room and they had a drawing, Amy had already said, I want a number on top of a trash pile, and they sort of had this sketch. Once you see that, like, okay, this person's showing off. This person is like, they're putting, Judy Garland on top of trash and they want a torch song. So once you get that image, it makes it so much more fun to think, okay, there's going to be jokes in it that are push the envelope a little bit. This person's gonna be just a little like body on the edge, because they're trying to show off and be entertaining. And that was sort of the key for the trash musical, is that we wanted it to be the most like showbizy entertaining piece. Once you get those things that Amy's directives, tap dancing, trash can lids, a huge trash pile, and a kick line. Well, you have to make it then like full showbiz. I mean, I'm surprised we didn't have sparklers.
Exactly.
Well, you don't want the trash to catch on fire.
That's true. There's a lot of chemical waste in there.
Yes.
I also, I have to also give a shout out to the Make My Kitchen Dream Come True number, because I'm obsessed with like a great retro futurist fantasy like that, with Megan McGinnis, I believe, on vocals. So it
Yes.
sounds great. What was kind of the way that came together?
Oh,
That
well,
one,
go ahead, Tom.
that one was, again, it was sort of just the basic. Amy had said, this is going to be a kitchen dance number between the housewife and a butler in a butler's pantry, and we knew she wanted a refrigerator, and she wanted a cake to be served out of an oven. Like that's what we were given, and so that gives you the basics of it. And then we just started playing with the character of it, and like you said, the sort of retro, kitschy, futuristic kind of fun of it. And the amazing thing was just watching them shoot it, because we got to be on set all week. We were working very closely, and that was a oneer, one of Amy's famous oneers,
Yes. Oh my
where
gosh.
the camera starts as Midge walks into the convention center, sees it, the camera continues up on stage with the dancers, does the whole number, and then out for a 2-minute conversation between Midge and the mafia guys. And that's all one number, one shot. And it was thrilling, because we're all like on the edge of our seat, and the dancers have to hit it and the camera has to hit it. It hopefully what you get from all this is that the love and excitement that everyone puts into the show hopefully reads when you're watching it.
Yeah, 100%.
And when it seems like you have such a short amount of time for all of this to come together. When you get a pitch of this is what needs to be included, what is kind of the process that you go through for writing? Does it take a lot of experimentation? Do you just start pounding out keys on the piano, or are you inspired by something?
It's great that we try to hone into, the one or two things that we get. We don't always get a lot of information. So we like to hone into that. And then honestly, we just start writing right away. And often the case with Maisel, we'll write several examples of something, because we often find it's easier to talk about a range of ideas than if you just come in the room with one idea, because then you're trying to fix that one idea. And then whereas if we can come in and say, okay, here are 4 ideas for the Gordon Ford theme. Here are 4 ideas for this moment, or here are 2 ideas for this. And then it lets everybody, Amy and Dan and the production, go like, oh, that sounds right, but can you use that song but with this groove, or vice versa? And it's you can kind of put those ideas together. And so that's kind of how we approach it.
And luckily we have this being our 3rd season working on the show, we have a shorthand with them now, and feel comfort in not feeling like our hair's on fire when they give us 3 weeks to do 6 songs. We sort of have to take a breath, and then know that we know how to sort of put it together, take the information, and show them some options as quickly as we can, and still have as much fun as we can possibly have while we're doing it, because that has to come through. These have to be fun.
The fun definitely reads. And this show, it's your 3rd season, but it's the final season of Mrs. Maisel, sadly coming to a close, but going out with a very big bang. What is kind of next on the horizon for you? Is there something you're really itching, like a different style you're itching to do, a different form you're itching to do?
We're like, what are we going to say?
I know. No, we're actually, what's really exciting, we've got a lot of fun things that we're doing back in our home turf of theater. We've got a couple of shows working on that we've had to kind of put aside because of Maisel, and now we're actually going to go back to, and that's kind of exciting for us. And then we've got another project that we're working on with Amazon that involves music, and that that we're hoping will see the light of day. You won't see the last of us for sure, and I think we'll definitely be doing stuff with Amy going forward.
We'll follow Amy wherever she wants to go.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. She's been such
if she took us to a trash pile in Hoboken, we'll follow her anywhere.
Exactly.
We'll make as many trash musicals as humanly possible.
Right.
Yes. Our favorite was Donna, the amazing choreographer. I mean, the amazing costume designer for Maisel. She watched the 10-minute musical and she was like, "This should be on Broadway. You should expand it." We're like,
oh,
really? Should we do a 2-hour trash musical?
Yeah.
There's an audience for everything. You never know.
Yeah.
You never know
if she wants to design it, bring on those costumes.
Yes, and we definitely want to do a Maisel musical at some point too.
Well, that would be fabulous. We can't wait to see what music you cook up next. Tom, Curtis, thank you so much for joining me. Everyone out there watching, make sure you stick with us here at Gold Derby for plenty more conversations like this. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.